Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Leanpub webinar on marketing a self-published book using Leanpub. My name is Len Epp. I'm co-founder of Leanpub, and I'll be your host for the webinar today. If you haven't heard much about us, Leanpub is a platform for self-published authors to write and publish and sell ebooks and online courses. Our platform is optimized for something called in-progress publishing, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But we welcome all self-published authors and love to see a variety of approaches and innovative approaches to writing and publishing on our site. In this webinar, I'm going to walk you through setting up a book on Leanpub, publishing it, and using some of our most effective book marketing features all live and hands-on. My colleague Russell is here with me today as a panelist, and he'll be noting your questions along the way if you have any, and we'll be doing a Q&A at the end of the webinar. One thing I'd like to note is that this is actually one of our first author webinars, so we're still learning about doing all of this ourselves, and we welcome any feedback you might have. Just a quick programming note, the topics I'll be covering today are actually the same as those I talked about in our first webinar, but this time I'm actually going to show you how to do everything. If you haven't already done so, please follow us on social media at Leanpub, and in particular our YouTube channel, where we post book launch videos, podcast and explainer videos and things like that. And you can also find us on Instagram and Mastodon and LinkedIn and Facebook and everything like that. We're going to put a couple of links to articles in here in the chat a little bit later on. But for now, let me just share my screen and we will get going. So this is the web page that we've set up for this webinar. It lists the topics that we're going to be going through. We're going to be creating a book. We're going to be showing you how to talk a little bit about marketing a book before you publish it. We're going to be talking about in-progress publishing, as I mentioned. We're going to be talking about setting the price for your book and pricing. We're also going to be talking about opting into Leanpub sales and promotions, creating coupon sales, which is a really cool feature. We're going to talk about how to post your book on social media, post about your book on social media, and what to do when your book is 100% complete. And I'm going to be showing you all of this based on a sort of book that I've set up on my own. That's sort of, I've just begun writing it myself, but I thought, sort of make my own example. I'm the host of our Front Matter podcast, so I've done almost 300 long-form interviews with authors and special guests at this point. So I thought I'd write a book called How to Shut Up and Interview People. So this is what a Leanpub book landing page looks like. You've got a title and a subtitle. You've got a book cover image. You've got both a minimum price and a suggested price, which is something I'll be talking about a little bit later. You set these yourself. This is where people can add their book to their cart. You've got a little progress bar that shows how complete your book is. You've got a little teaser text here, and I'll be showing you how to set all this up in just a moment. You've got an about the book section. There's a feedback link where people can email you if they want to. And then there's an about the author section at the bottom. And so let me just go to the Leanpub homepage. This is where you'll sort of begin your Leanpub journey. I've already created a demo account for this webinar, but it's pretty straightforward to set up a Leanpub account, and you can do it as part of the creating a book process when you're getting set up. So to create a book, you do what I just did. You go to the escape hatch here, as I'd like to call it, and you just click the create a book link. Then you'll be taken to this page where you can create a book or course. Book is selected by default, but you've got course there on the left. I'm going to be copying and pasting some text in during this webinar, just so you don't see me fumble around misspelling and things like that. This book is going to be called How to Shut Up and Interview People Demo, because I've got a real book set up. And it says the URL is available, that it suggests for me automatically, but I can actually choose this myself. I can actually change this URL myself if I want to, and I can change it to something else later if I want to as well. By default, the browser mode is selected, which lets you write your book in the browser, but you can also select the cloud mode, which lets you write in GitHub or Dropbox on your computer. And you can also click the upload writing mode. The upload writing mode is for people who have their own ways of writing ebooks, or people who've already published their ebooks elsewhere and who just want to upload them on Leanpub and use it as a new platform, or retailer, as people call it in the sort of self-publishing world sometimes, for selling their book. One of the reasons people do this as they might be selling it elsewhere, but on Leanpub you can actually make you actually make 80% royalties on every sale, which is higher than most other platforms. So while people might be going, say, to Amazon KDP for their self-published books for the eyeballs, they might come to Leanpub for the better royalty rate. I'm just going to leave the browser mode selected for our purposes here. When you scroll down, you'll see that by default, the free plan is selected. If you selected browser, you do need a standard or a pro plan to write in the cloud writing modes, but the upload mode is free as well. And you can just see all the different features and stuff that are available here. So when you're ready to create your book, just go to the bottom and click to add it to your plan. This might take a moment. Depending if you're a sort of seasoned Leanpub author, you'll see that it might take you a little while if you've got a lot going on Leanpub. So what this is showing you here is the Write tab for a book that's set up in our browser writing mode. Leanpub books are written in plain text. We explain this in a book, in an article that we've got called What is Markua, that you can find pretty easily in our help center and on Medium, actually on our blog. But basically, if what you do is you sort of have to type in the formatting instructions. And this sounds a little bit daunting at the beginning, but it's very simple and very powerful, actually, way of writing books. If you are familiar with the old-fashioned typewriter and the fact that it had underlining in it, the reason typewriters had underlining was a formatting instruction that meant that if you handed it off to a publisher, for example, or a book creator or something like that, that they would actually put it in italics. You weren't going to create a totally separate sort of set of letters on a typewriter for italics. Instead you just sort of like have a plain text formatting instruction in there, essentially. So what you do in Leanpub when you're creating a book, we show you these examples when you create a book for the first time. But you just put the sort of hashtag or pound sign to create a chapter heading. If you want to do a subheading, you do 2 of them in a row. And this will all be automatically formatted properly by our book generators. If you want to do italics, you put whatever it is you want italicized in between 1 asterisk, and you put it in between double asterisks if you want something to appear in bold. We've got a full tutorial for the browser writing mode that you can find elsewhere, and I'm not going to walk you through everything here today. This is about book marketing, not about book creation, but we do. So what I'm just going to do is just kind of quickly delete the second file that is actually very helpful. And I'm going to rename this one, this first file, just my book. So that's what I said about my typos. And then I'm going to click the button to save the changes. And you can see that that's been renamed. I am now going to delete all of this text. And I'm just going to switch and get my own little burgeoning manuscript going here and paste that in. I've started writing a section about types of guests, which is a really interesting topic to me. When you meet, hundreds of people and talk to them for an hour or 2 hours at a time, you get to know that there's a lot of different types of people. But basically what I've done for my little book here is I've created a little outline of what I want to do with the sort of chapters and sub-chapters and things like that. So that's the sort of very quick introduction to getting set up, started writing a book on Leanpub. The next thing that you're going to want to do on Leanpub, if you're writing in this writing mode, is you're going to want to go to the preview page after you've written a few things, and you're going to want to click the Create Preview button to get going there. What this does is it creates PDF, EPUB, and online versions of your book just for you. That's why it's called a preview. This doesn't publish it on the website or anything like that. Don't worry about that. This will just create files for you. And you can see this one was relatively quick. I'll just open it up in the browser and it'll take a second to load. But now you can see here on my chapter headings and stuff like that, if there were actual content in there, you would see it just like this. And yeah, that's a pretty quick introduction to how to create previews and get going writing. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is how to set up your book. So you remember I showed you my book from before. It has all this sort of, title, subtitle, things like that. Once you've started getting going on your book, it's time to do that. The main page where you'll be accessing all the different places to set up your book is the overview page for your book. And what we want to do right now is go to the About page under Settings. So the book title is already there. I'm going to set up a subtitle here just to match the one that we saw before. I've already written about the book content, so we'll do that here. I've already done some teaser text. These are all things that are actually very important, and we encourage you to think hard about them and iterate on them. Sort of try different things. There's no science to this kind of stuff, but you want to sort of one key thing you can do in your about the book descriptions and your teaser text and things like that is look for best-selling books in the area that you were writing on, if there are any. Or look to people that you sort of, are other people in your area who write in your area or in your genre if you're writing fiction, and use similar keywords to the things that they use so that you can help appear in searches. So that's the about the book page that we've started setting up. We also want to set up a book cover. So I'm going to just click here. We've got a bunch of information about how to create a cover image if you don't have one already, including sizing based on your book settings and things like that. Again, this is all covered in our various tutorials elsewhere. For now, I'm just going to choose a file that I've already got set up for my cover image. Click here and click Update Book Cover. This will just take a minute to get going. But yeah, it's actually just that easy. We've actually got articles in our Help Center about how to create book cover images in PowerPoint and Keynote, because these are such familiar programs and apps for people to use that they have on sort of PC or Mac. Yeah, and you can see here on the side, there's a bunch more settings that you can go into, including, adding a video to your web page for your book and things like that, which can be very useful. I'm just going to reload the page here. And you can see that the cover image has been added to the book. In order to get it to actually appear on the preview, like in the PDF and EPUB, you'd need to run a new preview at this point. But now I just want to move on to the next part of the webinar where we talk about marketing your book before you publish it. So the moment we actually created that book just a few minutes ago, a web page was actually set up for it. Now you can see that it's got our subtitle, our cover image, things like that. Before, it would have just been a kind of stub image and things like that. But the really interesting thing about this for Leanpub that you all get to just sort of right out of the box is you get a web page where people can enter their name. You can direct people to it. They can enter their name. They can enter their email address if they want to, or well, they actually need to do that. And then they can share it with you if they want. And they can actually indicate also how much they might like to pay for your book. And then they can click the button to be notified when it's published. This is a really cool feature. It's basically like, it's not exactly Kickstarter. It's not exactly pre-sales and stuff like that. It's just very sort of Leanpub version of those things, though, where basically what you can do is you can send people to this web page. They can sign up if they're interested. And you can actually use this. A lot of content creators do things where they'll actually set up like multiple projects at the same time. Try directing people to them and see which project actually gets attention. And it might be that the one that gets the most attention is the one that they then choose to go ahead with. I'll be talking a little bit more about that kind of thing in this section where we talk about in-progress publishing later on. But anyway, yeah, marketing a book before you publish it is basically a matter of sort of drumming up attention and things like that, and deciding what to do. You might want to sort of change the title, you might want to change the cover image, things like that. And now one thing I should note, this edit button here is how to get back into this sort of like author app side of things where you're working on your book. No one else is going to see this. Only you are going to see that when you're signed into Leanpub. But if you ever get lost, like on Leanpub, like I mentioned, there's the escape hatch back up here where you can get back to things. But there's also just going back to the web page for your book. So just going to click on edit here. And if you go, that takes you back to the overview page. And now what you can do is you can go down to the interested readers page here. And you'll see a bunch of sort of helpful information where we say, we show you how many people have said they're interested in your book. And if you scroll down, you can actually see if they've shared their email address with you. and you can see how much they're willing to pay. The next thing I want to show you is what to do when you want to publish your book. So you go to versions, publish your version. Now, typically in the past, I think normally when people think about publishing a book, they sort of think about like writing an entire book and then publishing it one time. The book is out there. You've got one launch, one opportunity for a book launch and things like that. On Leanpub, we actually encourage you to publish as you write, maybe even chapter by chapter. So you don't actually need to be finished before you can actually start going out. This has a lot of really cool implications, one of which is that you can have essentially multiple book launches. An important thing to think about that is that, like, your book might be a really big project in your life, but no one else has heard of it unless and until they hear about it. And so publishing new versions is a legitimate and genuine opportunity for you to go on social media or an email newsletter if you have one, if you're on Substack or something like that, and say, hey, I've got a new version out. If you've never heard of my book, buy it now. And yeah, so to do that on Leanpub, you just go to the publish page. You can write release notes. This you can do every time you publish a substantial new version. So you can write anything you want in here. Hi, my book is out. You might want to share your email address if you want to ask for feedback and things like that. This will go to that list of people. The first time you do this will go to that list of people who have suggested that they're interested readers. Going forward, people who are sort of who buy your book will have the chance to receive these release notes. So if they want to, they can opt out. I'm just going to put the % complete here at 10. One of the really interesting things about if you're going to be publishing in progress as you write is deciding when to publish your book for the first time. Our somewhat easy to say, because we do this every day, kind of tongue-in-cheek answer is, you should publish your book for the first time when you feel a little bit uncomfortable doing it. Like it might be a little bit too early. Don't wait until you're super comfortable doing it. Get it out there. It's really good for motivation. It's really good for building an audience. I mean, one of the reasons to sort of market your book before you publish it, and one of the reasons to publish your book as you write it, is to build an audience during that period of time in the past when you weren't building an audience, if you were following what was people would consider to be a more conventional publishing track. Having said that, there's one thing I need to add here. Anybody watching this who's familiar with the history of fiction publishing will have heard of something called serial fiction or serial publishing. This was very popular in Britain and Russia in the 19th century. If you've ever wondered why a lot of those 19th century novels, like by Dickens, for example, were so big, it was because they were being published, let's say, monthly in magazines. And if a sort of book took off, you can imagine that the sales of the magazine were going up because people were interested in this particular chapter by chapter serialized novel. Then your outline might expand a little bit because you're selling so many. An interesting thing about, George Eliot, if I understand correctly, she actually did, or Marianne Evans, she did actually write her whole book before starting to publish it, and then she published it serially. Dickens, though, he would actually publish, he would just, publish a chapter and then just wait and see how it would land. And what he would do is actually listen to what people were saying. And if they were not interested in one character as he continued to write and publish his novel serially, he might, not pay as much attention to that character that people didn't like. But if there was another character that people did like, that character might feature more prominently in the story going forward. So publishing in progress is actually a really interesting adventure to go on, both as a reader and as an author. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to click the publish button for this book, and you can see that a version of it's being generated. When it's done, it's going to look just like the example did that I showed earlier. It's going to be showing pricing and things like that. And you'll see a progress bar going along across the top while this process is being completed. One thing to note about Leanpub is that, the bigger and longer the book, the longer it takes for our, book generators to complete the process. But you can see now that it's been published. You can download, view it in the EPUB like we did in the browser like we did before. We've got a little pre-flight thing here with some helpful links and things like that. This one's actually showing me that I haven't done anything on my profile yet. I'll show you that in just a minute, but first let's go here and see our book. All right, so there we go. The book is all up. It's all ready for people to buy. It's really just that easy. And now, as an author, it's your job to sort of start directing people here as much as you can. To set up your author profile, click on the escape hatch at the top and just go to your profile page here. You can see I've got my name, I've got my email address and things like that. I'm just going and copying and pasting some profile text that I wrote beforehand, but you can do a lot more here in here than that. I'm going to choose my author image. This is by a comic book artist friend of mine who did this for me. You can add your Twitter or X handle in here. We've also got support for GitHub, LinkedIn, Mastodon, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And you can actually also add a YouTube video, a video that you've made on YouTube about yourself. We really highly recommend that you do this kind of thing. It can be daunting at first and things like that, but you'll get used to it if you're not already. So I'm just saving that information. And now let's go back to our book. Let me just take the opportunity to show you here how to get back to it. So you click the escape hatch on the top right. You can go to the authors section, and here you can see all the sort of products that you might have made on Leanpub. We're interested in books. So if you click on books, you'll see your published books. You can go here, and now you're in the overview page where you can work on your book. And the next thing I want to talk about is pricing. Pricing is obviously a really important part of marketing. It's a notoriously difficult and interesting topic. This is particularly the case, not so much anymore, but it was for ebooks. When ebooks first became a thing, people really didn't know, including experts and people whose sole job was selling books, didn't really know how to price them. Should they be less than the print book? Should they be some people thought they should be more than the print book. If you're curious about why something that costs basically nothing to produce would be priced at higher than something that you have to cut down trees to make, that's because people made their money off they were just used to making money from print book sales, and they didn't want to cannibalize that with ebook sales, so they would price ebooks actually higher than the print book. And you'll still see this practice sometimes these days. You can probably tell from the way I'm talking about it what my opinion is of that practice. Now, setting a price for a book, one of the things about setting prices, particularly for ebooks, is that most people, if they're getting into self-publishing or if they've been in self-publishing for a while, or even sort of conventional publishing, are used to seeing ebook pricing for fiction books. I think an ebook pricing for fiction books is conventionally lower than for nonfiction books. So if you're writing or if you've written a nonfiction book, it's about history, it's about computer programming, it's about technology, things like that, we recommend that you price it higher. Just like I said before, when you're publishing for the first time, you might want to publish when you still feel a little bit uncomfortable. When it comes to pricing your ebook, we definitely recommend that you maybe price it a little bit higher than you feel like you should. People do tend to underprice themselves. I wouldn't say undervalue themselves, but what it is that they think that, maybe people are going to think I'm too self-important or something like that. If the price is too high. No, actually, that's usually not the case. People will, if they're going to buy your book or if they're thinking about buying your book, they already respect you. And also, when it comes to nonfiction books, particularly professional books like management, if it's on Agile or Scrum or things like that, particularly if it's about career advancement and things like that and self-improvement, people are willing to pay. They might even have a budget for it and things like that. Another thing to keep in mind when you're pricing your book is that, and I'm going to be talking about this very briefly or very shortly, is you're going to want to do sales. People love sales. Sales are a really great way to get attention. And it's difficult to put your book on sale if the price is already at the minimum or something like that. So you're going to want to price your book a little bit higher, again, than you might otherwise want to. By default, we recommend 19 and 29. Most people, I would guess, probably are more like in the $12 to $15 range for their minimum price. Which leads me to talk about our variable pricing model. So as I mentioned, feels like a long time ago, it was just 15 minutes ago or so. When you're setting the prices on your prices on your Leanpub book, you set two prices. You set a minimum price and a suggested price. When people go to the landing page for your book, they'll see this thing set to the suggested price, and then they can choose to slide it to the left to pay less, or they can actually choose to slide it to the right and pay more. Believe it or not, people actually do that. Now, let me just go back to the landing page and show you how this works if you're not familiar with it already. So we have these things called pricing sliders. So if the minimum price is set to 19 and the suggested price is set to 29, what people can do is they can drag this slider here and they can drag it down to the minimum price, or they can drag it to the right and pay more. Now, if you're curious why people wouldn't always just pay the minimum price, and especially curious about why they would actually pay more, the answer is here. We might be the only self-publishing platform that shows how much the author earns from a sale. This is because, as I mentioned before, partly because we pay an 80% royalty rate, so we're happy to show how much the author gets. You kind of don't want to know how much the author's really getting from an Amazon sale just to pick on them, or from a sale from a bookstore. This has changed since the self-publishing has taken off and since ebooks have taken off and things like that. But, specifically to pick the example from an academic book, you might find an academic monograph, Shakespeare's plays and stuff, something like that, for like $100, and the author might get like $1 from that sale. The rest is going elsewhere. But on Leanpub, we pay 80%. And so what you actually get is people sort of deciding, well, how much do they want to pay the author? They might know you, they might be a fan, this might be a show of support and things like that. They might think you've underpriced yourself and they might want to pay you more. So people will actually take the slider and they'll leave it at the suggested price. They'll do this even if the minimum price is free. They'll still pay money for books. Again, this is one of the coolest things about the content creator self-publishing world that we live in now. People want to show support for the, let's say artists that they like and whose work they admire and like to, read or listen to or consume and things like that. Just going back to the pricing page here. So a really important feature or element of pricing in the ebook world is free purchases. I don't really want to talk about that for too long here. I'll probably make a different video where I talk about that because it can get a little bit complicated. But free pricing is a really interesting thing. Now, if your book's minimum price is free, that means you can't do free coupon sales. But free, if you're publishing probably nonfiction books, free is probably not something you're normally going to want to do, although I've got a very important exception to show you soon. If you're writing in fiction, genre fiction in particular, there are people out there, professional self-published genre fiction authors who write 100,000-page book every month. And they use free pricing to sort of, like, for example, if you've written like a series of 7 books, you might make the first one free. People read the first one, then they want to buy the second one, things like that. So it's a very interesting topic unto itself. If you want to allow free purchases, you have to tick this box here on Leanpub. That'll automatically set the minimum price to your book for free. We also have reader plans, membership plans, basically that like, this only counts, by the way, if you've made your book free. But that way you can actually make money from when people get your book for free on Leanpub, which we explain in our help center. And it's a little bit too complicated for me to talk about now. But anyway, we do have a really cool feature where if you opt in, people can get your book for free, and then you get a share of what they've paid for their reader membership. The next thing I want to talk about is sales. So I'll be showing you how to do coupon sales of your own pretty soon. But on Leanpub, we actually do our own sales. We do them on social media, and we do them in email newsletters and on the web. And if you want to participate in these, which I highly recommend you do, what you do is you just set a maximum Leanpub discount here. So this is saying to Leanpub, hey, if you want to include my book in a sale, you can set it up to this, discount. Not 400, 40 would be a pretty good percentage to set there. That doesn't mean that if your book is included in one of our sales, it will be at 40% discount. It just means it can be up to that much. Opting in here, it isn't a guarantee that your book will be included in any of our sales. And there's no sort of scheduling or anything like that. We've got a little algorithm that does certain things. There's other thing that's just done sort of editorially or manually, things like that. If a book is really taking off, we might click to include it in our next sale. We have a weekly sale and a monthly sale by email. And like I said, and we do sort of daily sales on currently mostly on Twitter, a little bit on Mastodon, and we'll probably be expanding that in the future. So cool things about Leanpub: you can do free sales if you want. You can set a minimum price. You can set a suggested price. You can earn money from free sales if you opt into that. You can opt into our sales as well. We also have this thing called of partner program sales. So basically, briefly, we got approached a while ago by a company that essentially is the best kind of middleman. Basically, what they do is they have corporate clients, and these corporate clients have budgets for their employees to do training. Rather than giving every employee their own credit card and stuff like that, what they do is they sign up for this platform and set a certain amount that employees can spend on that platform for authorized and sort of approved books, and I believe other resources as well. So automatically, when you create a book, you're actually included in this program, we currently have one partner. It's called Learnerbly. They're really great. It's a really great way to earn extra sales. So basically what this means is that people who otherwise wouldn't be able to get your book because they don't have a company credit card can get your book because their company is signed up for this service. All right. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, let's go back to the overview page, is coupons. I believe that there are more self-publishing platforms that are getting into this. I think we were a little bit of an innovator. We were kind of early on this. But on Leanpub, you can create coupon links. And you can actually create batches of coupons, which is really cool. There's an article about this in our help center that you can find. But let's click the button to create a new coupon and show you how this works. So you can see when you click to create a new coupon, we automatically show you what the link is going to be. It's this kind of, randomized or anonymized thing, but you can type anything you want in there, like, I don't know, fire sale or something like that. March 28. So if you were going to do a sort of really quick sale, like, just sort of, send it out there on social media, say, hey, for the next, 24 hours, you can get my book for this much off, et cetera, you can do that here. I'm going to make this, let's make this a 50% off sale. Hopefully I got my math right. So you set the discounted price. It's really interesting. You can set start dates and end dates for these things. It's set to last for a month usually. These are all UTC times, by the way, for what that's worth. You can also set a maximum number of uses on coupons, which is really interesting. So what you can do is you can do a sale and you can say, hey, the first 10 people to click this link can get my book for 50% off. So you can set a maximum number of uses. You can add a note saying, this was a quick sale idea I had. And you can click to create the coupon. When you've created the coupon, you can scroll down and you can see that it is created here. You can see what the sort of code is, and you can copy it here. So now that I've copied it, I'm just going to paste it in here. And what people will see when they go to it is they'll see, that code here at the top, sort of C/the code. And then what they'll see is what the normal suggested price is. And then they'll see the coupon price. So this coupon price, I said 50% off. When I said that, I was looking at the minimum price. So this is actually more than 50% off the suggested price. And yeah, you can see that the sliders are now set to the coupon price and people can get their discount and feel good about themselves and thankful to you for having done this. You can also, of course, create free coupons. Free coupons are a very interesting tool that I highly recommend you use when you've published your book. What you do want to use free coupons for, I mean, friends and family and things like that, although they might be the one that you want to ask for money first. Seriously though, free coupons are a really excellent way of reaching out to potential reviewers, people who you might want to ask to write a blurb for your book, and influencers and things like that. It's a really great way to approach someone who you want to get interested in your book, who you want to get talking about your book online and things like that. People really like being approached this way, as long as you send them a customized, let's say, email or something like that. They really like being asked to write reviews. They might not do it. They really like being asked to write blurbs. They might not do it, but they do like being asked, as long as, again, as it's a customized thing. Don't be shy. Reach out. Reach out to the most, famous person you can. You can try and reach in your area, and see if you can get a blurb. It's a really excellent way of marketing your book. The next thing I want to talk about is packages. Now, I mentioned sort of an exception to sort of this sort of free minimum price thing before, and here's one of our best-selling books on Leanpub. It's called Our Programming for Data Science by a professor called Roger Peng. Now, without going into too many details, basically, Roger was part of a very successful, massively open online course, and they wanted to make a companion book to the course, but they wanted to make sure that people could get the companion book for free. And this is one of the things that attracted them to Leanpub, was the fact that they could make a free minimum price, so people could get the book for free like this. But you could also pay for it if you wanted to. So that was the sort of exception there. It's actually more than one sort of book project on Leanpub like that. It's a pretty popular thing. There's a nonprofit, an educational nonprofit that uses this model themselves. But now what I want to talk about next is packages. So what Roger has done very cleverly is set up packages for his book. So the basic one is the book with the free minimum price and the suggested price. Now the package is the book plus some data sets and some R code files. So what you can do on Leanpub is you can actually upload digital content that you can sell along with the book, and you can create these tiered packages. So it might be the book plus some lecture videos and things like that, which sells for a different price. So you can see the prices have been changing at the top here as I click. And this is a really great way of sort of, you might get readers interested in the book. They might get that for free. And they might be like, you know what, I'd really love to have the lecture videos and stuff like that. So they haven't paid anything if you've used this technique, but they'll come back later and buy to get the extra content. If and when you do have packages set up, they will show up in these very nice boxes lower down on the page. And you can see how, things are represented, very clearly showing you what you're going to be getting. The way to do this, the first thing you need to do is you need to upload an extra. So this is the digital content that I was talking about. I'm going to upload an audiobook file. So this is the name that people are going to see. Here's a description. I'm not going to do anything too fancy. You click here to add the file. And then you click the button to create the extra. So there's going to be a virus scanning process that takes place for a little bit. But yeah, just to make sure everything's safe. But just like with the upload writing mode, when you upload an ebook, we don't sort of do anything to the files. It's just, what you upload. I would highly recommend thinking about adding sort of extras if you can come up with any related to your project. I mean, these can be Excel spreadsheets. These can be data files and things like that. These can be images. For example, you could sell a set of images that to go along with your book. You can actually add that nonprofit I was mentioning before actually adds previous versions of the ebook as extras that people can buy. So they actually can buy multiple versions of the book at once when they do it that way. So let's just refresh the page here. No virus found. Okay, good. So that should mean that I can now go to the packages page here and I can create a new package. You'll see that the book is represented as a package. You can edit that and add things so that even the sort of base product can have things added to it. And I'm going to make a new package called Book plus Audiobook. Add a little identifier. Again, not going to do anything too fancy here. And you can see that there's pricing, just like there is for a book. And and when you scroll down, of course, you see the extra down here that you can add. If you've got more than one extra, you'll see more than one option here, and then you can create the book package. You can change the order and what sort of people see when they go to the landing page for the book by making one of them the featured one. So that'll basically put it on top. But yeah, we've got our new book plus audiobook package set up here. And yeah, you can now see that it's set up on the book landing page and people can select it. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit, just very briefly, about posting on social media. We recommend you post as widely as you want to and as widely as you can. You might want to have a schedule where you do this kind of regularly. There are some platforms like LinkedIn, for example, that value persistent and regular posting and things like that. Don't be shy. Don't overwhelm people. But yeah, posting things. And remember, as I mentioned earlier, and I sort of like this is sort of me talking to myself, but it's always important to remember that there's always new people to reach out there that haven't heard about you and haven't heard about your book or your course or what have you. So always be reaching out on social media and things like that. Last thing to do is to talk about what to do when your book is 100% complete. At that point, what you can do is you can use Leanpub to create, if you've been using one of our writing modes instead of the upload writing mode, you can actually click a button to create a print-ready PDF version of your book that you can then take on Amazon and sell and things like that. There, you can take it to any other platform that you want. We don't have any exclusivity or anything like that. You can use Leanpub to create your ebook, and you don't even need to sell it on Leanpub. You don't even ever need to hit the publish button. You can just go elsewhere. You can put it up for sale on your own website and things like that. We also, when you're done, we have a really cool feature called Translate AI, or service, I should say, that you can use to translate your book into multiple languages, up to 31, which is a really, really cool thing. It works. Translating a book with AI is not as straightforward as just asking it to do it. We've been doing a lot of work for over a year now on this. It's a very complicated sort of prompt engineering process, but we can do it. And if your book is 100% complete, we highly recommend you give it a try. You can actually use, if you've been earning money on Leanpub and you've got unpaid royalties, so royalties that you earned that you haven't been paid yet, you can actually use those towards a translation. And so you can translate your book into a new language using royalties that you've earned from the first version of the book in your first language. And you can actually self-fund a publishing process into a number of different languages that way. So I think that's about enough for today. I'm just going to click on the Q&A here and see if there are any questions. If anyone has any questions, now's your chance to post them. Like I said, I hope this is still one of our first webinars, so I hope everything went okay. Doesn't seem like anyone has any questions. We've been recording this. It's going to be up on YouTube, hopefully relatively soon, for permanent consumption. And thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and thank you for being part of our webinar today.